Hello, everybody. I'm Norm Flora, a member of All Saints Parish, and honored to be here doing another cooking show. The last one I did was for the Neapolitan pizza dough. I hope it worked out for everybody. I will admit we've done it a couple times since then. I have a house full of people that love pizza, so it's always nice to do that. It's a pretty easy recipe too. Today I'm doing eggplant parmesan, and I want to say, I want to be upfront about the fact that I know a lot of people don't like eggplant, but please give eggplant parmesan a chance, because it's a nice, rich taste. And a lot of people don't like the texture, but when you bake it, it's a little different. There's one thing that I do that's a little different with this recipe, and it's in how I slice it. You'll find that a lot of recipes call for medallions, where it's sliced into circles. You can do it that way if you want, but I don't do it that way. I slice mine longwise, which end up coming out like this, and I use them like a noodle. So that's the only thing that I do that's different than most recipes. I prefer it that way, and it doesn't really change the flavor or anything, but it makes it a little easier to fill the pan. Sometimes with the round, you get these big empty spots. So. But anyway, I'm going to start off by making the sauce. The sauce is a very simple sauce. I dice an onion, and I have in the background 2 quarts of tomato sauce. It's crushed tomatoes. It's not tomato sauce. It's just basic crushed tomatoes. And I slice up my onion just to make, little long pieces of onion. And then I have about 2 teaspoons of garlic, fresh garlic. And I'm going to take that all back to my pan, which is heating up behind me. And then I'll add my garlic. And I want to keep an eye on this because I just want them to turn iridescent for me. I don't want them to get too brown or caramelized or anything. I just want them to get a little bit of an iridescence. And then I will add the crushed tomatoes. I have 2 quarts of crushed tomatoes. You could use, maybe, we were talking about canning earlier. If you can your own tomatoes, you could just crush them up and use them. You could even use whole tomatoes. You just remember to crush them up. I just use the crushed tomatoes. It's easy. I get a plain crushed tomato. You can buy them with basil leaf in them if you want. And then this sauce just simmers for about 20 minutes. And then I add it to the Parmesan the eggplant Parmesan when I assemble it. So let me grab my wooden spoon. I have one old drawer that's nothing but wooden spoons. And for Christmas, I always get wooden spoons. Tea towels and wooden spoons. So we'll give that sauce just a couple more minutes there. The onions going iridescent for us. My eggplant. The Italians call it melanzana. All kind of cultures use this. My exposure to it early in life was, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, making eggplant parmesan. But also in the Middle Eastern tradition, they make baba ganoush. A lot of baking of the eggplant goes on with some olive oil, and it's delicious that way. I love to do that. Just bake it with some onions, and it turns into this nice creamy texture type thing. You just spread it on toast with a little bit of avocado. It's delicious. Onions and garlic, and plenty of good olive oil, very good olive oil. Lots of cultures use it. You might want to even try pickled eggplant. Pickled eggplant is good too. But anyway, what I do is I cut the top off, and I cut the bottom off. I try to make them kind of square, because what I want to be able to do is just let it sit there like that. And then on the outside, I just slice a little bit off. That gives me that exposed end right there. See? And then I cut them in these, gotta switch the glasses, sorry. I cut them in these nice thin, about a 1/4 inch. See that nice thin slice there? Slice them down a 1/4 inch. They're sort of like a noodle almost, you know. Get a nice 1/4 inch out of it. And then we get all these beautiful pieces of eggplant out of the one piece of fruit. Now, the next thing I do is I take a colander and I line it, a strainer, I line it with the eggplant, and I'll do this in layers. Then I salt them, and then I put another layer and salt it. And what it does, folks, is it causes the moisture, the excess moisture to come out of the eggplant. Okay? And then I take the eggplant. Now I'll let that sit for about an hour. 20 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour. It all depends on how much moisture you want out of it. I usually like it to get most of the moisture out. It's probably about a 1/4 inch in this pan here. And then I take it and I dry it off with a paper towel. So then I get this nice, very fresh, not a lot of moisture. And it takes some of the bitterness out too. I had a friend who, I tried this one time, I didn't like it too much, but he would soak his in milk overnight. I didn't really like that. I've heard of soaking fish in milk and stuff, but not eggplant. I tried it and I didn't like it that much. Okay.
Norm?
Yeah.
Do you rinse off the salt?
What was that?
Do you rinse off the salt?
No, what'll happen is I take a paper towel and I just brush it off.
Oh, you're okay. So you're brushing as well as blotting, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
So what's going to happen, I wouldn't use rock salt or anything. I would use a table salt or a fine salt. And most of that, once the water starts to come out, the salt's going to drain away too. But that gives us this nice, firm piece of eggplant that doesn't have a lot of moisture in it. If you didn't do this, it would probably be okay. There might be some bitterness, which some people might like, but also at the same time, there'd be a lot of moisture in your final product. So it might get kind of soupy on you. So I like mine to be kind of stiff, like a lasagna almost. So I got the sauce going. Turn my flame down. And the sauce is going to cook for about 20 minutes or so. Sauce will cook for about 20 minutes or so, and well, I'm going to set these aside. I'm not going to salt these because I've got everything prepared. I was telling everybody beforehand that this isn't really the way we cook. We usually cook by just going through the whole thing and cooking, but I had to do this in stages, and so that I could show you, because we don't have a whole lot of time to do this stuff. So next, I'm going to bring my flour and egg dredge over and show you how I do the eggplant. Okay, so here's my egg dredge right here, and here's my flour. And my tongs, what I've learned, I know the little things really add up for me. Don't use the tongs in your flour. You will get a big mess of lumpy flour and stuff, so I just try to keep one set of tongs there, and in the flour, I just use my hands. And what I'm going to do right now is show you how I do the eggplant to prepare it for frying. I'll do a couple pieces of that, and then through the magic of, I already did it, I got a bunch of eggplant over here that's fried up and ready to go, and then I'll do the assembly of the eggplant parmesan for you. So the first place it goes is into the flour dredge, which is just basically flour, the salt and pepper. You could add other things if you wanted to. Some people like to add like oregano or something, but I pretty much stick to salt and pepper, maybe a little garlic salt sometimes. And then make sure all the excess flour is off. So it's just floured a little bit. Then I drop it into my egg mixture, okay? And I make sure it's nice and coated with the egg mixture. Okay, so we get this nice, juicy piece of flour and egg mixed. And it's just eggs beaten. There's nothing else added to it. I'm coming over to my fry pan. And I set piece number 1 in my fry pan. Now, just a quick note, I'm using vegetable oil. You could use olive oil. You have to be careful with the olive oil though, because you don't want to get it too hot because it smokes very quickly. And a hot, smoky olive oil can cause a bad taste, a bad bittery taste, smoky, burnt taste is what I'm getting at. So I'm using like a vegetable oil right now. You could use a peanut oil, but you always want to make people aware of that because there are people with peanut allergies, so be careful. I don't really take a temperature of the oil, but what I do is I drop a little bit of flour or a little bit of egg in there, and if it starts to fry up and comes up to the top, then it's ready to go. And it was ready to go. So, okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and flour my eggplant. Make sure there's not a big globs of flour on there. Put my eggplant into my dredge for the eggs. Make sure it's nice and coated. Sometimes with the flour, the egg will come away, but so again, I get that nice piece. And then when you drop it into the hot oil, it starts to bubble a little bit, almost like you're doing like a tempura or something. And what you're trying to get at is a nice golden color, not a burnt color, but a golden color. And this is one that I've done already. I'll bring it over. A nice golden color. And it's really cooked through. I mean, I could take a bite out of this right now and it would be, I would love it. Okay, so let me check these real quick. Again, another set of tongs that I try not to take away from this station. So I got a nice golden on one side. I'm going to flip it to achieve that golden on the other side. Just keep around our sauce because we don't want it to burn, but it's still pretty good. It's got a nice, the onions are, you know, nice and soft. The garlic's in there, and it's a very simple sauce. But, you know, I think with this dish, sometimes what can happen is when you overdo it, it'll take away from the eggplant part of it. And I really try to emphasize the eggplant and the flavor of the eggplant. I have grown to love eggplant very much. Also, another thing, I was talking to Kip earlier that this is really a vegetarian dish. I've used no meat so far. All the fats I use are vegetable based. I guess you could make this dish with meat if you wanted to, but I wouldn't. Traditionally, I wouldn't do that. So, other than the cheeses, what do they call them? Lacto-ovo or whatever.
Yeah, and your egg.
Yeah, yeah. And the egg, correct, right. But, okay, I'm going to grab my 2 pieces of eggplant to show you how they look. And I'll bring them right over. You can see the eggplant are nice. It's a nice golden color to it. I leave the skins on my eggplants. Some people will take them off or peel them, but I don't do that. After it's cooked, and I don't really, it doesn't taste bad that way. I like to keep it that way. And they get very soft. The eggplant skins get very soft when they're cooked through like that. Okay, the next part I'm going to do is the assembling of the eggplant parmesan. So the first thing we want to do, this is going to be my dish. It's sort of, I mean, it is a lasagna dish. You could use a smaller pan. And actually, for the end result, I have one that I cooked that's a little smaller that I'm going to show you, because we're not going to wait the 45, 50 minutes for this to cook to show you. But so assembly, the first thing you want is a thin layer of the sauce on the bottom. So I'm going to go do that right now. So I'm trying to show this to you. I put a thin layer of sauce on the bottom. Okay. Step one. Step two is I want to cover the bottom with the eggplant, a piece at a time. I like to put them kind of firm. Four. So it's going to probably be about 5 pieces of eggplant. And I'll cut this one just to make up the difference. So I'll show you that real quick. As you can see, we've got the eggplant in there. Pretty much all of the base of the pan is covered. Okay. So our next step we're going to add mozzarella cheese and Parmesan. Now the mozzarella, I make this all different ways, different kinds of mozzarella. But I found probably the more pleasant texture-wise after the dish is done is just using the shredded mozzarella, the low moisture shredded mozzarella. You can use fresh mozzarella, you know, like the balls. It's going to add a lot of moisture to the dish. You can probably tell I like that nice firmness when the dish sets up. I don't like it to be soupy. It all depends. Fresh mozzarella is delicious in it, but it does tend to make it very, very soupy. So, over top of the first layer of eggplant, I'm going to put mozzarella, generously sprinkle the mozzarella. Nice and cover it up. You never have enough cheese. And then a nice handful of the, you can use Parmigiano or Pecorino Romano, or I use Parmigiano. So. And this is from a brick that I ground up. You know, the difference between a fresh Parmesan or a Parmigiano from a hunk of cheese and something that's been in a can for a while is night and day. It's, you know. Okay, so now that I have the cheeses all in there, my cheese is on top of my first layer of eggplant. I'm now going to add another layer of sauce. And this layer is probably going to be a little more generous than the very bottom layer. So I sprinkle it over. I'm going to show you what I've done. As you can tell, it's a little healthier this time. Sprinkle it over as evenly as I can. Knowing that when it bakes, it's all going to spread out anyway. So the next thing I do is I go to my next layer of eggplant. So we're going to go ahead and put it in, fit it nice, and it's just like a lasagna noodle almost. You know, it's very much like a lasagna noodle, if you think about it. Now, in the pan that I used over here, one that I pre-made, it's a little taller, so I usually put 3 layers in that one. This one I'm just going to make 2 layers. It's the same thing, it's just an extra layer in that one. But with this pan, I think it would, what happens is when it cooks, it would bubble over, and I don't want to cause that mess. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my last piece of eggplant here. I just cut it in half. See? And there's a perfect little spot for it. Just to make it nice and tight. Oh, I love eggplant. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is go with our mozzarella. The same pattern. With our mozzarella. Generously spread it all around. And then next is our Parmesan. And then on top of that, I'm going to put a little more salt. So you can see there's a pattern here. Okay, so I have that last layer of sauce. And let me tell you, this pan's starting to get heavy. That's a good sign. And then what I do on this last layer, I just put some mozzarella. I added mozzarella to melt and get nice and gooey. Gooey's the key, right? One thing you could do is, after putting the mozzarella, you could put some fresh basil on top. Or if you really wanted some meat, you could put some pepperoni on top. Again, with this dish, it's the eggplant that I'm looking for, the flavor of the eggplant that I like to have. And I'll just sprinkle a little more cheese. Now, what would happen with this is I would cover it and bake it at 350, a preheated oven at 350 for about 45 minutes. Then I check it. What you're looking for is around the sides. You want to see it to start to bubble. You want to make sure your center is hot, nice and hot. Basically, what you're trying to do is heat up the sauce, melt the cheese, and the eggplant will start to absorb some of those flavors, and really good. Now I'm going to put this in my oven for 45 minutes.
Norm, didn't you say you cover it?
Yeah, I'll cover it with some aluminum foil. I got to get a piece of aluminum foil.
Oh, okay.
I would cover it with the aluminum foil. If you didn't cover it with the aluminum foil, the top would go too brown too quickly, I think. That's what I find. So if I'm cooking it, let's say for 45 minutes, I'll cover it for the first half hour or so with the aluminum foil. And that'll cause it to steam and get nice and hot. And then I take it off. And I'll let that gooey cheese on top brown a little bit. So, I don't know if I put that in the recipe or not. I may not have. I may not have. But that's the way I do most of my dishes. Anything that has cheese on it, I want my cheese to not only get gooey, but I like the top to be a little crispy. So let me grab a piece of aluminum foil. Okay, that's 350, set my timer for 45 minutes. So I got one timer running for 45 minutes and another one running for 30 minutes. And when the 30-minute one goes off, I'll take the aluminum foil off. And when the 45-minute one's done, and finished, and it beeps, I'll check it. Sometimes I have to let it stay a little longer or spin it a little bit or something like that. Now, let me get the finished product. Okay, so this is a smaller dish, I know, but here's what the finished product ends up looking like. Not a whole lot of moisture because of, preparing the eggplant, getting the moisture out of it. And also that fresh mozzarella would cause a lot of moisture to be in there too. I think there might be, I guess you could let the mozzarella drain, but fresh mozzarella has just got a lot of moisture, which is nice. I mean, in certain things, but I basically, sometimes what I'll do is if I'm making eggplant parmesan, I use the shredded dry mozzarella. But if I'm making chicken parmesan, which I don't mind it being a little bit of soupy or something like that, I'll use the fresh mozzarella. Fresh mozzarella, when it melts, it really is nice. It's that long, stringy, beautiful, melting kind of thing. So, okay, do we have any questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
After you've made up your pan of Parmesan, do you ever freeze it before you bake it?
Yes. Well, what I'll do a lot of times, so I'll do it two different ways. I will freeze it uncooked, make sure it's all sealed up so it doesn't get frozen, freezer burned, and then I'll cook it from frozen to complete, which requires more time. Or sometimes with certain dishes, I will freeze it. What I'll do is I'll cook it, let it set up, cut it up, and then freeze it in small packages like Ziploc bags, get all the air out of them and everything. And then when I'm ready, I just heat it up in the oven again as an individual portion. That works for Mary and I when we're the only ones home.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So that's one way of doing it. Like when I make chicken franchise or anything like that, I usually freeze it before I bake it. And then the night of eating it, I'll bake it in the oven from frozen till complete. It doesn't usually take that long. Even though the chicken franchise is done, it's been cooked, it still needs to be heated up. And then I'll put my lemon sauce on top or whatever. I do a lot of dishes like that. The eggplant, the chicken Parmesan, though, I find it's best if you have it all cooked and ready to go instead of pre-freeze. You can pre-freeze it. It just doesn't taste as fresh to me. I like the chicken Parmesan real fresh. So
we may need a cooking class on the chicken, the other dish you just mentioned, not the Parmesan.
The chicken franchise?
Yeah, we may need that.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the 70s, we were making a lot of ice cream. Mary's family had it all the time. My wife,
Well, wonderful.
and they called it chicken French. So, of course, you can't just make vanilla ice cream because the kids want Oreo cookie, or Mary's favorite is green tea ice cream. And there was a while there at the beginning of the pandemic that you couldn't buy any of the brands of green tea ice cream. They weren't there. And that's kind of what got me kicked on the whole thing about making my own ice cream. I finally broke down and bought a little machine. It doesn't make the ice cream, but it sets it up for you. It churns it. That's what it does. It's got a paddle in it and it churns it. And really gives a nice consistency to the ice cream. So we're kind of spoiled lately on ice cream, but what the heck? Any other questions about the chicken parm? I'm sorry, the eggplant parm.
It looks wonderful.
Really does. It really looks
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So I like for it to set up like maybe 15 or 20 minutes, just let it set up and then serve it with, I like to keep it kind of simple, just some garlic bread. I guess if you really want to, you could have a side of sausage or something, or maybe some broccoli with some garlic and oil on it. But you wouldn't need any other starch, I don't think. You could have a little pasta if you wanted, but I just like it with a side of garlic bread and keeping it nice.
How long do you set it up before you slice into it so that it stays together?
Probably about 20 minutes,
Okay.
15 to 20 minutes, you know. I do my lasagna the same way. I like my lasagna to be, I like tons of layers in the lasagna, and I like, I don't use ricotta in my lasagna. I use cream sauce. I make a cream sauce and put it in. It's a Neapolitan way of doing it.
Yep.
And
I just get too impatient sometimes and cut it too soon.
yeah, I know, and you know it's just as good, but
Yeah, just
I
a little
guess
messier.
it's a little presentation. I always hate it when you put a piece of lasagna on a plate and then the whole plate is nothing but lasagna.
Yeah. Yeah, agree.
We always try to mimic what the great chefs do, you know? Patience, patience.
Can we see what a piece of that looks like?
Yeah, I can cut a piece. Hold on.
And then pass around the forks.
Yeah. Grab one of my many knives here. I like the corner pieces.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can
Oh,
see
that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And that's a 3-layer. Now those layers, they sink down because once the eggplant cooks, it becomes very soft and it just, you know,
Wow.
floats in there. But yeah, I like it to be a little bit set up. So if you didn't, it would just be like on the dish everywhere. But so come on over.
Yeah, it's not runny at all. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and part of it is that, you know, soaking the eggplant, getting the extra moisture out of that, and not using the fresh mozzarella. You know, I don't think if you use the fresh mozzarella that it would be a big problem. In fact, if you let it sit up like we did here, when you take it out, most of that moisture might just come off, you know.
Beautiful.
But, you know, I've always used the dry mozzarella.
Looks wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Norm.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Look
And,
forward.
Really, really enjoyed it.